You got everything good to go?
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like we're gonna have Hayes and Brents. Well, welcome back, Star Wars CCG fans. We are here with our top four. We have Hayes Hunter playing against Steve Brenston. So, Taco, I personally don't know Steve. What do you know, and what can you tell those at home who haven't had a chance to see Steve?
Well, Steve is an old school player, but also a new ally. So definitely bridging the gap here, just like Hayes is. He played a lot in the late 90s, early 2000s up in the Kashyyyk region. So, Massachusetts, Connecticut. I think he lived in Connecticut for a while. This is going to be an interesting matchup because we had something posted in our Slack channel earlier today about um, ratings from the early 2000s when the Decipher website went offline, right? And Hayes was number one and Steve was number three. So that's an interesting parallel to have them coming up here in the top four in 2023, 21 years later, 22 years later. I can do math.
Yeah, and as the players are shuffling up, it looks like we have Obi commuting on light side for Hayes versus AOBS for Steve. So I'm still waiting to get there. We go.
Yeah, and this will be an interesting matchup. I think prior to the Master Luke errata, this was heavily in favor of the Obi side here, but post that errata, and plus with some cards that have been added recently, I think Black Sun could be advantaged here. But it's a very close matchup, I think.
And I apologize. I'm trying to get the update to the players on the screen, but it's running a little slow. So bear with me for a second. Yeah, I agree with you that it was definitely favored OB commuting before the errata. Now I definitely think it's more of a, 50-50 and maybe slight advantage to AOBS. It really just depends on how well AOBS can find some of their answers when they decide to go to Coruscant and actually, make that a battleground, which we'll see what type of space presence Hayes has. We know from game one that it doesn't appear that he is playing the, shield busting version like he did at day two at World. So
Yeah, we didn't see shield busting. We didn't see a system or celebration, but we did see Han Chewie Falcon and the Tantive.
mhm.
I am just letting people know we are back live before they get started in earnest here.
It appears already that team viewer is going to be a little slower, so I'm back to watching it on my phone, which I think for, casting purposes will be useful that I'm not ahead of you too much. So all right, so it looks like both players are shuffled up and cut, and we're about to get started. In the other game, we have Chris Werfs playing against Anthony Howard or Batmouse. So the matchups over there will be
I know it's going to be
Yoda
CCT versus
Hunt Down.
no, versus Yavin 4 Operations, and then
Yep,
Hunt Down versus Chris Werf's Light Side, which I don't know what it is.
it's Yoda communing.
Okay.
So had a privilege of hearing Hayes doing a rundown on Sam Tashima's stream. We have 8 different decks, so no repeat in the top 8. So
All right, looks like they're getting ready to go here.
yep, and I will continue to fuddle and try and get the names changed, but clearly that is not Ryan Sears. But all right,
Hayes, I can see Hayes' hand here. Hayes on the Obi communing. I don't love his hand. There's no Luke, so that's kind of a problem right away. We'll see what he is able to draw into on his first turn. But I did see Leia Rebel Princess again, so that's a good card to have. There's a Cantina, so it'll be interesting to see when he drops that down. And also Lando and Hera in hand.
and we saw Steve check his quietly observing for a second and went ahead and is pulling Fanfare. So obviously probably going to go get Shizor's bounty.
Definitely seen some interesting cards pop through Steve's deck here. I saw the Dagobah Cave. I saw Hidden Weapons. I saw Always Thinking with Your Stomach.
I'm glad that you're on here because I don't know all of the search party rules. So it could come up.
I see perhaps an Emperor Palpatine or 4.
Not uncommon.
And then Steve's revealing his 2 aliens. It's going to be Mara with Saber and Dr. E combo. Pretty standard 2 here. Usually the third one might be Mithra Naruto, but probably a little lighter on the space package than without him. All right, I think I posted everywhere. Everybody should know we're back if they care.
Is Steve on GIMP? Do you know?
Yes, it is S. Brenston 1. Yeah, he doesn't play very often on GIMP, but he has in the past. I'm pretty sure he made an OCS top 16. I think the first year we did it.
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Steve, so looking forward to an event. Maybe we get out and I actually get to. So, all right.
I wonder if Steve will come to Ohio next week. He usually travels with Brian Fred or 2 events that Brian Fred does. So
even more celebrities at Ohio Mega Worlds.
Just a non-zero chance.
All right, we see Vigo. I assume it's Vigo V come down. We see him pull the Caesar's Palace or Caesar's Palace. And we see the Imperial Square come down from Shadows. He pulled that from deck. I don't think that was from hand.
Yeah, that was Shadows.
And then the Palace is going to pull the Sewer. So this is kind of an aggressive AOBS start, getting all of your activation out. I know sometimes in mains matchups, you want to slow play getting some of those sites out, but
Yeah, I think you're fine just going, right? Like it gives them a spot to go. Sure, it gives them a spot to drain too, but like the strength of Black Sun is in battling. So if you have something where you're going to let your opponent put cards down,
and Hayes pulls Goldenrod, Shizor and Vigo move over. That flips Steve.
yeah. So pretty much the start you want from Steve. The only thing missing is maybe an Emperor to the square if Hayes hadn't pulled Goldenrod, but since he did, that's pretty much the start you want.
Yeah. So looks like they're gonna redo, and Coruscant is moving to the right side of the screen because Hayes is fine. He wants to do all of his action probably on Tatooine, at least to get his use pools to begin with. So
It's nice that Jared is already in the chat disagreeing with me. So Jared plays way more Black Sun than I do. I might defer to him, but I don't know. I want the Force if I'm the dark side player.
see, the only reason I know any of this is because I got into the game by watching a bunch of streams and I listened to JNAP's marathon tournament report and he talked about that. So anything I say about AOBS is me just parroting what I remember from JNAP. So we had a comment in chat about helping some people coming up with a default deck file to download and talking about shields and effects. And JNAF points out we have a primer on the shields, but we are definitely going to try and do what we can to help new players come into the game. As someone who was recently there, I can tell you watching these streams and watching videos and getting people way smarter than you to come on and potentially co-host is a great way to learn about the game.
We should find one of those.
Bill, don't sell yourself short. I mean, you're doing great. We see Moss Isley, and that's it. We don't see the farm. So, given what we saw from Hayes' opening hand, I see him drawing a bunch of cards.
So it's interesting. He has a decision if he wants to play the Cantina. I mean, Steve already has, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 force. Cantina will get him to 13.
And speaking of someone really, really smart, we have multiple time world champ Justin Desai in the chat pointing out against an I'm Bats deck, you want to not have those floating your locations. It's okay to pull them because you don't. If they're coming to Coruscant, that's a win because they're not getting the used pile pulls. So I tend to agree with that. And Hayes is drawing.
He did play. I can't believe he's gone. So got that out again. Turn 1.
Oh, that's the card that is under the light. Okay. Justin just says he plays his sites. Okay. Shows me. Yeah, and Justin's pointing out, Bill, the same thing that you did. The fact that Hayes didn't get a turn 1 Luke means he's going to get a ping in for free. He's going to be able to do the things that AOBS wants to do by being on the 7 side. So it should give him some time to establish his hand and prepare for when Luke does hit the board, because he is going to show up in this matchup. And looks like Hayes lost an escape pod combo to the ping.
Yep, and I think Steve is paying to drain one here also.
Mhm. As someone very familiar with the Kashyyyk region, Justin points out maybe Steve gets revenge for the Kashyyyk regional finals of 2000.
Yeah, see, I told you this goes back a long way.
Emperor comes down to join Caesar at the palace. I imagine this means, and we see a Force Lightning pulled from reserve deck. I imagine do you pull the uplink station, or it hasn't hit the table yet?
I think if it's in there, you grab it, right? Like it's one more
Yeah.
site, it doesn't really matter.
It
Yeah, and that,
hasn't yet. Looks like Steve is using his peak into his force pile.
yep. I saw Hayes pulled do or do not also. So any sense shenanigans will cost 2 force.
In the sense.
But yeah, Steve just drawing a couple, it looked like.
Yep.
Saving one, activating one more now.
Yep.
Or should be activating one more.
All right, so Hayes is in his activate. He's activating 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Two
I got
from
2, 4, 6. It should be 9.
9 himself. Yep. He found the antechamber, which he plays to the right side of the hut. And back to one of your earlier comments about the cantina, I think you slow playing the cantina to wait and see how hard and how much Steve commits to Moss Eisley, because I imagine that's probably where you play Luke unless Steve pulls the detention shield.
Well, I think Luke is coming to Coruscant. I think you need to be aggressive against Black Sun and you need to come to them. And the same thing, Black Sun wants to play on Coruscant. So that I think a lot of the action is going to be on those Coruscant sites. And that's why I'm not so worried about, playing the 2-2. You give up 2 force, but you probably don't give up a drain of 2 because Steve's probably not going to go there.
All right, Hayes paid, I think 4.
And Hayes has also pulled all 4 shields. Steve has pulled 3 now.
And we see Leia Rebel Princess come down to Moss Eisley.
Yeah, and I think this is a function of probably not finding what he wants in his force pile last turn and having to put down Leia and Lando here, probably. Probably Lando, maybe Luke.
I saw 5. It's one or the other.
Yeah, okay. He did find the Luke.
Yep. So Luke hits the table, which will flip Steve back.
So this goes against what I just said, right? It's interesting. Maybe Hayes is planning on doing that Cantina Shuffle for a good portion of the game. Maybe he's trying to lull Steve into something so he can neighbor and beat later, right?
Which we saw neighboring from the first matchup in round in the top 8 against Searson, so we know it's in there.
But yeah, also one of the things that is so good about that Cantina Shuffle is you effectively can cause 4 damage or 5 damage or whatever it is by holding effectively one site because you keep them all at one site at a time.
Yeah. Hayes is doing his used pull, and I don't know if this is a function of just where he stopped and he did a hand motion. He was looking at possibly taking another Master Luke. I don't know that he did. We can't see what card he took. And it looks like he pulled Anakin Saber from reserve.
Yeah, that not being Luke Saber is not insignificant here, right? Like, because now
The-
if he does find what did we see in other games, an Anakin or a Rey, they're not
Mhm.
going to be able to attack with a saber.
Right, unless they go there and pick up the
Yeah,
saber from, which again takes down one of the people who can go do anything to effectively battle at Coruscant. So maybe this action will all be focused on Tatooine. All right.
I was gonna say I don't know
Hayes,
what that last effect is that he just
he
pulled,
played
but it looks like it's sand.
Sand, and it looks like Anakin and Hera might be
Anakin
stacked
and
on.
card.
It might be Hera, just based off the picture. All right.
Nice.
Hayes draws a few, recirculates. Now the action back to Steve.
Yeah, and that worked out to be a good turn for Hayes. I don't know if he had that Luke in his hand and was able to grab something else, or if he pulled it with the Leia. But getting Luke down, stopping that ping is going to be big.
Hmm.
And then he's also threatening to drain for 2 and 2 next turn if he pays for it.
Yeah, because we did see him pull the cantina. That was his last action. So sorry if I didn't say that out loud. All right, we see Emperor pull a Force Lightning. Get used to that in this matchup. That happens quite a bit. Oh, the two cards stacked on Sand are Anakin and Leia's gun. That Leia's gun could be significant. Aliens usually don't have great defense value. Shooting one of them off of a site, pretty good.
It's not bad.
Yeah. All right, so now if you're Steve, Luke's been committed to Tatooine. It forces you to either spread and maybe set up the Falene's Fist at Coruscant, get the uplink station out so that way you can increase your damage, because then you'd be draining it too. By moving and spreading, you could get your Shadows ping going, or you could go after Luke and Leia here. But it's difficult because AOBS relies a lot on alien characters. They have a few that can get around Leia Rebel Princess. So much like the last game of CCT, you have to have those cards in your hand, and it may take a little bit of time for Steve to get that set up. So we do see the uplink station come out.
And Steve did pay 3 to drain for 1 again.
Which we lost. They're tracking us from the top.
So there's IG-88 with gun to the Cantina.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of
Anticipating
those
that
cards
shuffle.
that'll help you against Leia Rebel Princess.
Very much so.
There's Falene's Fist, like you said.
Which do you leave the Emperor alone and move Shizor and Vigo over to the uplink station, or do you move the Emperor over?
Yeah, I was
I
gonna say, I
think
think
he,
this is a multi-turn plan, right? So
yeah.
you're going to accept that you're going to take some damage this turn.
Hmm.
Um, you're not going to set up the icon on Coruscant, but your next turn you'll be able to threaten with Ig at the Cantina if Hayes wants to move over and drain extra. You'll be able to set up that uplink station drain and somebody on the fist, so you can set up also the shadows ping. So you have a lot of options next turn. So you gave himself a lot of outs.
Yeah. And now we move on to Hayes's turn. He activates. We'll see if he's going to pay to drain.
It also sets up the threat of something like a disarmed or a sniper on Steve's control phase.
Mhm. Which are all cards that you'd commonly expect to see in AOBS.
Greg, you should check your math there. All right, so Tantive comes down. On shooting Falcon follows. So yeah, Hayes again having both Tantive and Han Chewie in hand.
Tantiv's an update from his worlds list because that one was playing Profundity, I think Leia's Resistance Transport and Hanchu and Falcon. So
Well, there's Profundity too.
that's a lot of power.
Yeah, and so the fist is power 6, draws a destiny, and is immune to less than 8.
Let's see, the Profundity itself is power, I think 6. Tanov is a 4 and HCF is 8.
Yeah, so he's at 18 power, and then he has hair on top of that, which adds 3 more, so 21 power here.
Yeah.
Steve gonna masterful move.
Mhm. And really hope that last card, the one card he used to activate to do that, isn't his Gick, but he knew in his force pile that it, yeah, there it is. So that's a lot of resources committed to a non-battleground, but I
Well,
imagine he'll be able to satisfy um,
that
Coward at some point.
that Coruscant becomes a battleground if you occupy it.
Yeah. Thanks for the correction. I knew that there was a restriction on as soon as it becomes occupied, but I thought if dark side controlled, then it becomes a battleground. So thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, 2 icons there for light, because
Yeah.
Tantive adds 1 too.
Yeah.
I think he
And so
battled.
now, yeah. And he's going to pull a card off of sand, it looks like. Maybe.
Yep, takes Anakin.
Yep.
Draws Destiny to power. It's a 2.
Mm-hmm.
And a Battle
Draws
Destiny.
Blount, which
5.
is, yeah, there it is, the 5. And Steve drew a 3, or did he play double back from hand?
No, he drew a 3.
Yep. Okay.
So going to be power 9. forfeit 8, so we'll have to take some overflow, but he does have that Gick in hand.
And Hayes will lose Hera.
Yeah, so that's going to be a problem if you're Steve, because that takes away one of the things you could have done this turn, which was to, set up in space, set up your free drain, set up your ping, set up your extra drain at the 2-1, the uplink station. And then your Ig is over at the cantina, so he can't help you if you wanted to fight into Leia and Luke. And meanwhile, Hayes has set up a drain of 2 and 2, so definitely a fantastic turn for Hayes.
Yeah. And AOBS, typically their space package, they could be running Forlom or Zuckuss and Forlom and Mist Hunter. Some of the other space cards, some may run Java Space Cruiser. You'll see Alice and Henthra as another possibility. Those are usually the cards that would really be in space, but we see Ellis draws a 4. See if there's any
Hayes will grab
response.
it.
Yeah.
So Steve's still going to get his line here that he thought about doing. So it is the disarmed for Luke. I see some interesting cards in Steve's hand. So there's a first strike there, and Hayes finds himself with no force. There's a Boba Fett bounty hunter there. It's just a matter of if he can. Oh no, I guess Luke's text is not active, correct? Because
he's with another character and he has to be alone now.
Yeah, so if as long as Steve doesn't capture Leia and leave Luke alone, he doesn't need to find anybody special. But he does have aura also.
I mean, in that situation, would you want to try and capture Luke?
Yes, 100% of the time.
Yeah, because even though he's disarmed, you take Luke off the table, flip back, and then you just, run Iggy away as far as possible. Keep him alone and no one can battle into him. Yeah, Justin Desai's twin brother says Fett or a capture Leia and just hope.
How are you going to have two different accounts within 10 minutes?
Is one to tell us the real things, then the other one is to make fun of us, Justin? If so, I support. Phone versus stop with logical answers. We're just gonna make up our own fan fiction on this. And Steve pulls up Luke's text just to make sure that he is thinking about it correctly. And Hayes, being the consummate gentleman that he is, pulls up Luke and the AR just in case in his comm link to pull that up to make sure there's any additional rulings. So
Yeah, each alien deploys +1 there still.
yeah. So I think we just saw him count out 10 for Aura and Boba Fett Bounty Hunter first strike.
It was 11, yeah.
Yep.
Good point, Justin. I forget that text sometimes. So Justin points out that I can't believe he's gone does allow you to activate one force, which you can do during the battle and then can play an interrupt.
But does he have a Hoojix in hand if he needs it? So
I mean, it's looking at like 4 battle destinies right now.
yeah.
I don't know that Steve has battled yet or not. Well, I guess he
No.
has if Hayes is losing a clash off the top.
And Hayes' shield busted, so he should be able to retrieve the fist. And, Justin points out sand. So the beatdown potential and overflow is not going to be that much
I
because if
mean,
you're Hayes, you obviously pull that.
it's still 15, and Aura can potentially make somebody forfeit 0,
Hmm.
plus Destinies.
Yeah.
Other Justin is very good at seeing cards in people's hand and points out that Hayes does
Yeah.
have Hoopix.
Oh, yeah. And the retrieval already happened because the Gick was the top card. Good catch. I'm just here to keep everyone on their toes. So, uh,
Draws a 5. So whoever it was. Okay, so
he
Hayes is going to subtract
subtracts.
2 from that
Hmm.
draw.
Yeah, it was going to be pretty tough to capture with the -2. So,
But that does
looks
mean that
like
Aura now can swing freely.
that's a
Does hit
tentacle.
Leia.
That's a for a 5. Action on Hayes. He still hasn't pulled a card off stand yet.
I wonder if you do have the Hujix, maybe you just don't pull the card off sand. You just
Yeah, because
eat it, right? Because even so, if you don't plan on using the Hujix, you're power 8 against 15.
mhm.
Luke covers that difference.
Yeah, Silver Glen says you leave it on sand, and I agree. I'd say let him draw the 4. So he draws a 1. Which becomes a 3 because of quietly observing.
But it stays a 1.
Oh, it's just Aura and CAD. I
Yeah.
thought yeah. So it's just 1.
It looks like
Draws
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
5.
6, 11 total.
Mm-hmm. I think we accidentally saw the top card of Steve's used pile when he was doing that.
Yeah, and he's not even going to draw here.
So Hayes did lose Luke. He needs to pay the 1 force to play Hujix, but then he will use the once per game to revive um, Master Luke from I Can't Believe He's Gone, which gets rid of the disarmed. Where Greg points out was the difference in the battle with the 11, but Leia's forfeit was 0. Master Luke went not, maybe that he
Also,
just
it
lost.
was 8,
Yeah.
15 he could cover, and that's the power of the thing. So it was 11 overflow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he did need to pay that 1 for the Hujix,
Yeah.
but This does, since Master Luke stayed on table, it does allow him to drain for free at Coruscant. Justin's asking, how do we know he didn't pay? Because he activated the one from the effect, he had nothing, and then if he forfeited those and played the Hoojix, then that would have been it. Yeah, it looks like they fixed it.
All right, so he did revive, and then he Cantina shuffled away from that pile.
Which is 1,000% the right thing to do, because now you're going to get uh, 4 damage in this turn, and it looks like an Emperor, a Dark Time combo, a Masterful combo, all from the reserve deck, and there might have been one more card I missed. It looks like Hayes used or Master Luke's once per game to get Anakin's saber back with Master Luke. We know that Anakin is in his hand. He's using Sightor to verify his reserve deck. Didn't see anything in there.
So yeah, this is kind of tough now for Steve because Luke is on the table. Space is kind of a non-starter.
Yep.
Your best attacking guys are at Mos Eisley, and he can just keep running away from them for free.
Yep. You're only
Yeah,
going to be draining for paying 3 to drain for 1 on Coruscant. I mean, as long as Hayes can keep Luke alive, and I don't know how many more cards Steve is going to have to spread. So, yeah, Justin Desai 2.0 points out this game is pretty much over. His prediction that it's going to be a big win for Lightside. He's saying Lightside wins by 20. Very well could be, because the damage potential now, if you spread, maybe you get a Shadow's Ping, but you're doing 4 to Hayes's 4 a turn easy, if not more, because he can go wide to he can go to the sewer to be very far away from the current characters on Coruscant. So this is going to be a pretty tough uphill climb, but we'll see where it goes. So Hayes
yeah.
is
See if it has something like another Ellis or something like that. That could help swing it, but
mhm,
uh, Hayes also just retrieved his Hoojix as well.
yeah. Surprisingly, we haven't seen 3PO hit the table yet, which Hayes paid a bunch of force for different things. I'm not exactly sure what, and is just drawing a bunch.
Yeah, I mean he paid one to retrieve with he put Walkling out of play.
Yeah,
I think that's the only thing that should be there. He
yeah.
did pay 5, but then unpaid 5.
I didn't see him roll the 5 back. I saw him pay, and then
Oh
he
yeah,
probably was thinking about Anakin to join Master Luke, but
yeah, and he's got Anakin and Lando in hand.
mhm. Yeah, Justin points out a second Ellis might be what Steve is hoping for here.
Yeah, especially with now that reserve deck being shuffled, he doesn't know where the Hoojix is, and the escape pod already gone. If you can find a way to beat down a second time, that would be good, but I don't know that you have the gas to do it.
Because Master Luke is alone, which maybe what Hayes was thinking about when he put the 5 down. No one there. No, Aura would be able to, would be
Well, Aura's
enough.
on the table
So,
already, though.
but Aura would be a 4, so that way she would be able to draw against Master Luke, is what I was saying.
Oh
If
yeah,
he Ellis'd over. Yep.
He's got to have an Ellis first. I think he's looking at other characters in his hand, and I don't think any of them are going to be able to help him. He does also have, we saw when he was searching his deck on turn one, there's hidden weapons in there. So that could also be a way that you can take Luke out of the game here. And then you can transfer him to Ig and move away.
Yep. He could throw down Mara. Could be an
Yeah.
option to just swing at Luke.
She's somewhere in reserve deck though.
Because he drew her for Battle Destiny last turn. So yeah. We see Steve pay 3 to drain for 2, it looks like, at Moss Isley. And Hayes loses Blount and someone? No, top deck. He top decked
That's another,
another
I can't believe
copy.
he's gone.
Yep. I see a bunch of red in Steve's hand and maybe 1 or 2 characters.
Well, so of the characters in his hand, one of them is definitely another Boba. So that's why I think he was reading it to see how to put him in use pile, see if it was worth it. So one to move Aura over. He's going to Shadows Ping here.
Which it looks like Hayes lost
I think that's
right.
Lando.
Lando or yeah, I think you're right. I think it is Lando. Okay, yeah, the rest of the squad meet up with Luke at the cantina. So this feels more damage mitigation than anything.
Well,
Because
you're
Luke,
not even mitigating anything because he's just going to Cantina slide over to Maz Heisley and drain for 2.
I'm sorry, drain of 3 versus drain of 2.
Yeah.
That's all I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, if he had other characters in his hand, maybe you can think about he would still need another ability 4 character, but maybe you can think about moving um Aura over to the Cantina along with like Ig, so you get 2 Battle Destiny there and leaving Fett and somebody else at Mos Eisley.
Steve's drawing. Let's see, he's drawn 3, 4, drew 4, and passed the turn. He pays Fett's upkeep, and now the action back onto Hayes.
Yeah, so he's with a ton of force here.
Yeah.
And 4 damage.
Yep. Emperor from hand. 2 emperors from hand.
Steve just tossing $400 away from his hand.
Yeah. Good thing he gets to take that home with him. Next turn he could set up something because I do see a Tarkin's Bounty in his hand. So he might be able to find some of the cards he's looking for.
Yeah.
Next turn, but will he have enough left in his reserve deck to pull off a play to, get Master Luke? Especially with losing those emperors. He'd have to draw effectively a 7 with the -2 from Ig to capture.
Yeah, there goes
Well,
hidden weapons off top of reserve too.
Yeah. And Ellis and Henthrow was the other one.
I think it was Zuckus and Forlom.
I was a ship. I thought it was Ellis, but or Henthrow, but I'll take your guess.
There's a second Lando.
Pretty common. Yeah, Iggy adds 1 with the shot, correct? when you're trying to
Yes.
capture. So you
Yeah.
would effectively have to draw 5 minus 2. So yeah, you'd have to draw 7 in order to capture Luke.
Yeah, I can't think of many sevens that Black Sun would play with it playing so many sixes already.
Well, it's not going to play artillery. It could play the real weird Wookiee card, but Mournful Roar. But no, I'm kidding. We see Anakin go to the
I think
tantrum.
that's Ray.
Okay. Yeah, it's 4/4, so yeah, it would be Ray. And no, it's 3PO.
No, 3PO went to space and Ray is coming down to Mos Eisley.
Got it now.
Four for another Leia.
And Hayes has 5 cards left in his force pile. So if you're Steve and you see that kind of stack, I am not sure what he could do to kind of, go into that stack. Is this where you just start paying to drain and try to pump through as much damage as you can, or you going to try and do something to help change the math? I'm not sure what lines are available.
Yeah, it's tough
And
because you would think like paying to drain at the cantina would be your best bet because it's 2, but Leia's going to cancel that, so you're not even going to be able to get to do that.
yeah, and Hayes just played free ride to cancel the force lightning that Steve was trying to put back. Steve grabbed it.
But yeah, having um, Luke making all your aliens +1, having Leia forcing you to have a non-alien, and then having Lando to retrieve and add a destiny makes that very difficult to come into. Plus Rey is there, right?
Yeah.
So like what do you I don't know that Steve has cards anymore to attack. I don't know what the players are trying to figure out right now.
Do you know who's sitting there? That's not Phil, is it?
That's Phil. Phil's the active judge.
Ah, he's growing his hair out. It looks like Steve has 15 left in his life force. I was trying to quickly count that as he was doing this. And Hayes was shuffling his force pile for some reason.
Yeah, I wonder if there was like a disagreement on where a card went after peeking at it with communing and then paying for Lando.
Possibly.
But yeah, Steve has to Tarkin's bounty into something here. Probably has to move at least Ig and Fett over to Mos Eisley to be able to contest that, and probably somebody else too.
Yeah.
And then still have Aura Singh at the cantina in case he shuffles over to the cantina.
And also have a Gick in hand. What's the other matchup? We have Werfs and Batmouse are playing. We know Werfs is playing CCT and Batmouse is playing Y40 with his Jedi business and then on the flip side, it's Hunt Down versus for this game. I
Do we know
believe
Steve's light
Steve
deck?
is on, I believe it's OA.
That would make sense.
And, and for Hayes, he's playing Java Palace SSA.
Yeah, the desert landing site.
Yeah. And just to be a complete answer, for the other matchup, it should be Hunt Down versus Yoda Communing for Bat Mouse and worse.
U3PO is a decent stopgap here.
Mm-hmm. And P59 has gone to the Moisture Farm. Shelly do Obi's Hut for free. Putting the Fist to the top of the or the Lost Pile. And yes, you were right. It was Zuckus and Forlom.
I think Steve's trying to argue that Zuckus and Forlom and Mist Hunter is a droid.
Yeah.
Looks like Batmouse won game 1 by 12. I don't think Steve knows that he can't drain at that 2-0.
Cad Bane is joining Shelly. Anti-reading cards, so the rage in 2023. Justin, you are not wrong. And have we seen a Shadows ping yet? It does not look like it. And it doesn't look like we're gonna get one. And Phil points out the 2 for maintenance, and then we see wipe. Now the action on Hayes. He's saving 3. No, never mind.
And yeah, the having that run Luke run drop out and knowing that Anakin is in hand means that P59 is probably not going to have a good day.
He is not. Looks like Hayes is still thinking about what he wants to do here. He hasn't fully activated. We know he's saving 3.
That's what you think.
That's what I thought. He saved 2. Until he inevitably goes back and puts 1 more back.
So it looks like Batmouse won by 12 with Dark over Werf's commuting.
Which the next matchup, CCT versus Yafuro, that could be interesting.
Yeah, there were a lot of ships on table watching that CCT versus Sam's No Idea.
Mm-hmm. Hayes is now saving 5, 6,
7.
7. I told you he was gonna figure it out
This should be what? Sorry about the mess.
to get
To
rid of
kill
U3PO.
U3PO.
Anakin to the moisture farm, and P59 is gonna have a day. Okay, sorry for the lull in the action. Hayes is still in activate. We're trying to see how many he. I think is saving 6. 2, 2, 2. Yep, 6. It looks like Steve is starting to lose, but unfortunately his lost pile has moved underneath the camera, so we know he lost at least one card from hand. To the drain at, I assume it's probably Coruscant. You know, I place 2 drain.
Yeah, it's the only drain spot he's got right now.
Yep. And yeah, another card.
I think it's Aura.
Yeah, it's definitely a character, but that would make sense because we did see one in his hand earlier. There's Nabrin.
Yeah, so neighbor makes sense for why he's trying to figure out how many to use.
Mm-hmm. And if you're Steve, I'm hoping he has a neighbor. No, we
We'll
don't see
decline the
neighboring.
neighbor.
It's just Anakin to the farm like we thought. There's the barrier. No best shuffle from Hayes, so
Now we might see a neighbor.
yeah, now we see it. If you're Steve, hopefully you have an Utagunta solo, or I think you use your sense. Nope, no neighboring. We have Padme now.
Okay. That still accomplishes the same thing with the battle into Run Luke Run.
Yep. And now we see the 1 to initiate a battle. And pay 1 to retrieve 1. Padme is all alone. There's Run Luke Run. And there's a sense. Draws a 4, so it's good. He's gonna have to lose 2. He loses the barrier and another card from used.
Would have been a barrier also.
Yeah.
So now Padme against P59.
Draws a 1 for the shot, I would assume.
Yeah. Battle Destiny.
Hayes
Hayes is gonna
activated
activate
1.
one.
Yeah. Hayes draws a 5. And Steve draws a 3, so the site will clear. And
Yeah, so not really much changing on that turn. Hayes continuing to drain for 2 in space, and then still setting up some extra drains on the ground.
he's paying 1 to move Luke to the farm with Anakin. I wonder if use 3PO will follow. He won't move. Yeah, he will. And yeah, Steve pays the 1 for U3PO to follow. So Hayes has no force left as he pays Lando's maintenance. Steve's counting. He has 7.
Yeah, it's got to be under
I
15
think
or
it's
so
like,
at this point.
yeah, I was gonna say like 14 maybe. Yeah, I think it's 14.
I think
Yeah.
Steve did his shadows grab, but did not get to ping because he only has 2 battlegrounds.
Mhm. And it does look like he has 14 force left in
I
his
think he
life.
grabbed the Gick.
And now Steve is reading the site
Yep.
text.
Learning he can't drain there, I think.
Mhm. Well, Bill, what kind of beer are we drinking this afternoon?
Spicy Urban Farmer, which is a mango habanero beer.
All right, so it looks like he paid
He's learning
3
again that
to
he can't drain.
drain at the cantina at least.
Yeah, so he paid 3 to drain, I think, for 1 at Sizor's Palace, and then also at the Cantina.
And Leia Rebel Princess put another card that was on top of Padme on top of the reserve, or the card that he lost, which I think was a 5. So P59 hits the table, maybe at the cantina, maybe Moss Eisley.
I think Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
I think this might be Steve's last hurrah here.
Shoot somebody, probably Lando, retrieve, lose a couple more force for Hayes. Yep, there's 1 to battle. Pay 1 to retrieve
No,
1.
no, this is he has ended his turn.
Oh, okay.
He was paying for Boba Fett.
Bet. Yep. Okay. And we see wipe. Hayes looks to be north of, I think he's 19 left in his
Yeah, that 23 might be very accurate.
yeah. So drain at Coruscant, we lose something that he was hoping, Steve, based off the reaction, and
I
we're
mean,
not sure what the cards are, but I assume it was a Gick.
Steve would make that reaction if it was accelerate or something. I guess there's no accelerate in this deck, but like,
Well, I don't know Steve that well. So
yeah.
we see Nabrin. So it's a 1. And And
Guess a
Steve,
mannequin will go drain for 3.
yep. Sorry about that. Had a message come in. Steve is down to, I think, 9 in total
2,
life
4,
force.
5. That makes sense.
Yep, here comes the sorry about the mess. Draws a 2 and a 7. So now he'll be able to drain for 2 at
Yep, 2 at the
the
farm.
farm. Yep. He lost the 2 that he paid for maintenance. And did he already lose to the drain at the square, or has that not happened yet?
I think he did already, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this Obi commuting is just
Yeah.
steamrolling in the 2 games we saw.
Yep, and Hayes is looking to put a card back, plays perimeter scan to grab aim high. And we'll pay 1 to initiate a battle at Moss Isley, pay 1 to retrieve 1. Retrieves the sorry about the mess. So it's power 4, 4, 5, 12 to P59. I mean, if you're Steve, you shoot with P59 and hope to draw something high to hit Lando. He draws a 3, which,
Subtract 2, won't
yep,
hit. 1 force 2, add 3 to
a 3.
power.
Yep. And Destiny is a 5, which becomes a 6, and he draws a second 3.
Yes, that's gonna be what? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 17, 21 to 7.
Yep. And we'll see Lando go. And there's the Gick. You see Ray go lost. 3PO joins Anakin at the square on chewing the Falcon land at the square. All right, goes back to Steve, who activates all 6. Steve kept flashing Guri for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why, but
Knowing Steve, he's talking trash.
okay.
He says,
1,
how are
2,
you going to
3.
compete with this powerhouse I have right here?
That powerhouse droid. Yep. So Steve pays to move CAD over. Does his shadows ping. And We'll have to sacrifice Boba because he can't pay the maintenance, although it doesn't really matter at this point.
Poor Boba.
He goes to the Netherverse.
And yeah, Hayes should be able to drain out here, right? Because it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Mm-hmm.
If he has a character in hand, maybe he does not drain all 8 and just tries to battle to get that one more force. But yeah. Maybe it's Unita he has. He just moved a card from his lost pile to the bottom of it to put Ray back on top.
And resistance is pulled, which would now be in. So it's 2, 2, 2, and 1. So 7. Maybe drains at the square. Loses 2 from hand. 2 more from hand. Oddly enough, when I'm looking at the stream camera, it looks like Steve's sleeves are blue, but are very purple on the upper cam. So useless thing just to fill the time while we see how this game is going to end. We see a drain of 1 at the Moss Isley, 2 at the at the farm.
He drained for 2 and then canceled it with Leia.
Right.
So that put
To put
Ray
1
back on
back.
top and then 3 PO'd to get Ray.
Yep. So I imagine Ray is going to come down and battle Shelly, and we see a shuffle.
Yeah, so he'll be able to battle Chelly and then also battle Ig if there's still.
Yep. Or CAD. It doesn't matter. Shelly. Because Shelly won't draw. But I guess you battle second first, or if you're Steve, you just.
Well, you can just
heal.
battle into Chelly and not draw Destiny, so you're 4 to 3.
Yeah. Okay.
And he does draw Destiny. So he draws a 7, that's going to end the game.
Yep.
So that's going to be. We'll count it out here.
Yep. 6, 9, 10, 24.
24. So Hayes wins game 1 by 24. We'll see Old Allies versus the Desert Landing Site SSA in the next game. That'll be interesting to see.
Charlie points out in the chat, not much respect for OB commuting in these deck choices. You're absolutely right. It appears OB is still
Yeah, I mean, you got
at
what? 2 CCTs and a Black Sun. That's a little tough.
as
2 Shadow Collectives. That's a little tough.
Yeah. Both decks I've put down at the beginning of the year. I told myself I wanted to teach myself a new deck, so I was trying to teach myself AOBS, and then OB became a thing before the errata. I played 3 games, and I said you cannot play AOBS with Master Luke, but it's still a tough matchup. So I am curious if there'll be a break. OA winning a game by 24. That feels like a lot.
Feels like a lot. It's not unwinnable.
Oh, I wasn't suggesting that. I just think OA is a deck that feels like it puts a lot of cards on table and usually wins their games between like the 10 to 15 range. Am I wrong in that assessment, or what are
No,
your
that seems right.
thoughts? Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
So Hayes is boxing up completely. So I think they're
Yeah,
gonna
they're gonna
take
take a break.
Yep, okay. All right, well, we will bring the stream back up as soon as game two gets started. Everyone enjoy the break and we'll see you back in a few minutes. Okay, I got us muted. I wonder if they'll play the second game.
Yeah, they will.
Okay.